start. So just to recap about the last class, we're discussing about Parkinson's disease. I told you there's a problem in dopaminergic neurons because of which dopamine levels will become severely low. Uh, Two things happens because of that. One is what you call movement disorders occurs, specifically because of increased acetylcholine levels. And see, so if you have less amount of dopamine, this will in turn increase the amount of acetylcholine. So you will not just have movement disorders because of low amount of dopamine, you will also have movement disorders because of increased amount of acetylcholine. Increased acetylcholine can cause severe twitching and those kind of functions. Okay, dopamine does a inhibitory function on acetylcholine as well. Whenever you have normal amounts of dopamine, acetylcholine levels will be in control. So whenever in Parkinsonism dopaminergic neurons are getting damaged and the amount of dopamine is decreasing, acetylcholine levels will inadvertently shoot up, because of which several problems occur. Now in the last class I told you how dopamine is formed. So just to recap, let's suppose this is a dopaminergic neuron. Okay, and here you have a dopamine receptor. You will have tyrosine being converted into levodopa, okay, which is in turn converted into dopamine. This dopamine is packed into vesicles, and whenever there is a stimulus, let me use a different one. So let's suppose there is a stimulus like this dopamine comes out, and the dopamine attaches to that particular receptor. In turn, action potential or threshold potential comes into picture, which might become an action potential in future. Now the fate of this dopamine molecule, once it has attached to the receptor and forwarded the information, will be in two ways. One is reuptake, wherein this dopamine molecule will be taken back inside through a dopamine receptor here. Yeah, Atul, they have a doubt.
Oh,
Microphone is on. Not able to hear you clearly. There's a lot of background noise. Okay. So anyway, one thing that will happen is it is taken back inside. Okay, let's suppose 50% of it is taken back inside to so that it can be reused. The rest of it will go to glial cells where it will be broken down. So you have glial cells, different types of glial cells present in your brain, and these glial cells will have two specific type of enzymes that include monoamine oxidase, especially monoamine oxidase B, and you will have COMT, catechol O methyl transferase. Right. The significance of these two enzymes is that whenever dopamine gets comes in contact with these enzymes, they will break down this dopamine molecule into different constituents. So let's suppose it is breaking it down into X and Y. All right. In any case, you will lose the amount of dopamine. Now, in your body, what happens is whatever dopamine is present and which is being made in your body, that is transferred. So most of your dopamine will be made in your gut, and it will be inadvertently transferred into your CNS. Less amount of dopamine as such is produced in your CNS. Most of it will be made in your gut, and it transfers through your BBB to come into your what you call into your CNS so that it can be used. This was the what you call normal working of your dopamine. In last class we discussed this, and I told you there are a few more mechanisms wherein you will have a few enzymes like dopamine decarboxylase, and we have COMT, which is present in your gut as well, both of which can degrade peripheral dopamine. So if you give dopamine from outside, it can degrade that. Now coming to, I hope यहाँ तक याद आया. Do you want me to re-explain it, or do you want me to go over any particular part one before we getting into drugs? This is how normally dopamine will work. Okay. Now coming to the drugs of Parkinsonism, see, we have a problem where the amount of dopamine is low, because of which acetylcholine levels are also high. So you can do two things here. You can directly increase the amount of dopamine. Okay, so you can give drugs that are increasing the amount of dopamine, or that also has several mechanisms in which you will ultimately get high amounts of dopamine. The second thing you can do is you can decrease the amount of acetylcholine, because there is increased amount of acetylcholine causing a lot of side effects and causing a lot of symptoms. You can decrease the amount of acetylcholine as well. So you can do these two things. These are the two ways you treat or you manage Parkinsonism. It's not exactly treatment of Parkinsonism because it is a debilitating disease. There's no exact treatment for Parkinsonism, only you can manage the symptoms. Now, coming to the most primary way, the first way, wherein you are increasing dopamine levels. So, drugs that increase dopamine levels, they will be categorized into four different categories or four different sections. The first one will be a dopamine precursor, in the sense that you give levodopa directly. Okay, let's suppose you are giving levodopa directly. Now, why don't you give dopamine directly? Dopamine cannot cross BBB as such. If you give dopamine directly, it will not be able to cross BBB, and your goal is to send dopamine into your brain. You will give either IV, or let's suppose even if you're giving oral dopamine, if it gets destroyed peripherally before it can go into your CNS, there is no point in giving dopamine levels. On the contrary, what will happen is the overall level in your periphery of dopamine will increase. So your peripheral dopamine levels will shoot up way too much because it is not able to go into your brain. Our goal is to send dopamine into your brain, into your CNS. Okay. So what I will do is I will give a substitute called L-DOPA. L-DOPA is a precursor for dopamine, but it has the ability to cross over BBB and enter your CNS. The problem with L-DOPA is that levodopa, only 1%, if you give, let's suppose, 100 mg of levodopa, only 1 mg will cross BBB. 99% of levodopa that you give will get converted in peripheral tissues, will get metabolized in peripheral tissues. Herein comes those two enzymes. So levodopa, if subjected to dopamine decarboxylase, will get converted into dopamine peripherally before it can go. See, this cannot happen. Dopamine cannot cross BBB. uh, Dopa decarboxylase is an enzyme that is present peripherally or around your body. Okay? When you give a levodopa, either IV or you give IM or you give oral, what happens is almost 99% or a huge chunk of it will be converted into dopamine by DDC, dopamine decarboxylase. We are losing the function there. Dopamine cannot cross BBB. Even if I have high amounts of dopamine, it is useless. Okay? I need to have it in L-DOPA form so that it can go into CNS. Another enzyme is COMT, catechol O-methyl transferase. Okay? It will be present both in your CNS here and in your peripheral tissues. Okay? COMT will convert levodopa into 3-OMD, 3-O-methyl, 3-O-methyl dopa. Anyway, you don't need to remember all of them, just remember 3-OMD. In any case, we are losing L-DOPA levels. This is also useless to us. 3-OMD is useless to us. We cannot substitute that as with dopamine in your brain. So what we need to do is we need to stop both dopamine decarboxylase and we need to stop COMT inhibitors. Therein come the other drugs. Okay, now we will first discuss line by line all the drugs that are coming. Okay, यहाँ तक समझ में आ रहा? Are you able to follow what is happening, all of you? See, first we discussed what is dopamine and what it is doing in our body. Then we started with how you can treat Parkinsonism, or how you can treat a deficiency in dopamine. I told you there are two ways. One, you can directly give dopamine, or second, you can decrease acetylcholine levels. Because if there's low amounts of dopamine in your body, acetylcholine level will be high, increasing the symptoms of Parkinsonism. So another way of managing Parkinsonism is inhibiting anticholinergics, inhibiting acetylcholine. We'll get to that as well. But first, we'll discuss what is how we can increase dopamine levels directly. I hope you guys are following. If you have doubts, shoot right now. Okay, you can put it in the chat as well. Now, coming to the first drug, as I told you, we have dopamine precursor, which will be levodopa. ठीक है, you cannot give dopamine directly because it will not cross BBB. You are giving levodopa instead. Now levodopa will undergo two reactions, so I'll just write L-dopa. This can undergo two reactions in your periphery. ठीक है, 1% of levodopa crosses BBB and enters CNS. ठीक है, it will enter CNS. Rest 99% gets metabolized either by, so I'll put it here like this, either by COMT or dopa decarboxylase. This is a problem. Okay, it will get converted into, let's suppose, 1 and 2, two different components, wherein it is useless to us now. Technically, dopa decarboxylase is converts levodopa into dopamine, and COMT converts it into 3-OMT. But we cannot use it in our brain. This is a problem. Both of these are useless. So levodopa as such has some functions. Okay, if even if we give this what you call levodopa as such, and only 1% is going into your brain, it has a few functions, or it has a few pharmacological effects. Specifically, let's suppose we give levodopa on your chemo trigger zones. Dopamine will stimulate, so whenever levodopa goes into your CNS, it will get converted into dopamine, but it is non-selective in the sense that it will overall increase the amount of dopamine all around in your CNS. So not just in your what do you call dopaminergic neurons where they are damaged. See, in Parkinsonism, we have a specific problem where only in your striatum, in your substantia nigra and striatum, you have a nigrostriatal pathway where those neurons are getting damaged. That is where you want to substitute, but we cannot select. It will not only go to that location, it will go to all over your CNS, and it will have effects all over your CNS. Those effects will include vomiting, because your chemo trigger zone gets affected by dopamine. Whenever you give levodopa, the amount of dopamine increases, and because of which chemo trigger zone gets affected. Its stimulation will cause vomiting. So one effect or one pharmacological effect is, so if I write pharmacological actions, okay, on CTZ, it will cause stimulation leading to vomiting. Okay, then on your CVS, dopamine can cause postural hypotension. It will affect your what do you call, how should I put it, it will basically cause postural hypotension. If there is increased amount of dopamine, it will cause postural hypertension. Postural hypertension is also called orthostatic hypertension, meaning whenever a patient changes their position, body position, let's suppose they are lying down and they get up, or they are sitting down and they get up, that is when they have hypertension. Sometimes it is so severe that they will faint. Okay, there will be sudden hypertension, because of which all the blood that is present in the brain will get drained to a certain extent, and vertical, they will literally become unconscious, they will fall down. Okay, that is postural hypertension. And tachycardia, your heart will work extra hard because of hypertension, hypotension. Okay, arrhythmias, okay, continuous tachycardia can lead to arrhythmias. Initially tachy, then brady, then it will keep changing, that is arrhythmia. That those are the effects on your CVS. On your endocrine glands, especially in your pituitary, so endocrine suppression occurs. This is particularly important with respect to pituitary gland, because if you remember, pituitary gland has an effect where whenever pituitary is stimulated, it will inhibit the production of PCL. PCL and growth hormone both are under an inhibitory function of pituitary gland. Whenever I am suppressing endocrine glands and whenever I am suppressing pituitary function, the amount of prolactin will increase. So this will cause increase in PCL levels. Okay, prolactin levels will increase. Now, other than that, there are a few drug interactions as well of this levodopa. Those drug interactions will include, so you cannot give this with other drugs. Those will include pyridoxine. What is pyridoxine? Who is pyridoxine? Okay, then let me specifically ask, Ganesh, are you online?
Yes,
What is pyridoxine?
vitamin B
B.
B6.
Yes, vitamin B6 को बोलते हैं pyridoxine. Okay, so what one drug interaction? See, I'll randomly ask questions. I'm not sure whether you guys are actually listening or not because I don't hear any noise or any doubts altogether. Pyridoxine, what will happen is pyridoxine enhances peripheral decarboxylation. Peripheral decarboxylation of levodopa. So basically it will do the same effect as DDC. If you remember, I just wrote down, see right here, vertical. Here you can see in the two arrows that I drew, levodopa 99% of it will be converted either by COMT or DDC. DDC is dopamine decarboxylase. Whenever you decarboxylate levodopa, you change its structure. यहाँ पर pyridoxine is doing the same. When you give vitamin B6 along with levodopa, it tends to increase the peripheral decarboxylation of levodopa, and in turn what ends up happening is the amount of dopamine that is reaching your CNS will significantly decrease. So avoid giving with pyridoxine and avoid giving it with phenothiazines. What are phenothiazines? We already discussed this. Who are phenothiazines? Who should I ask? Hmm. Kirtana. Online hai? Okay, sometimes some students are not able to literally hear me. So, okay. Anjali, what are phenothiazines? Put it in the chat if you guys are not able to hear me. Who are phenothiazines? We've already discussed this in a different class of drugs. Okay, that will be your homework then. Find out what are phenothiazines and let me know. So,
Antipsychotic drug.
anti, yeah, go on, go on. I don't know. I didn't see who was answering it.
Antipsychotic drug.
Antipsychotic drugs. Yes, they are antipsychotic drugs. Which type? Typical or atypical?
Typical.
Typical antipsychotic. Okay, fine. So, phenothiazines. Can you give me any example of phenothiazines? Okay, so something like chlorpromazine, or you have flufenazine,
Thorazine,
thioridazine, thioridazone. Okay, all of these. So when you give phenothiazines with phenothiazines as well as metoclopramide, I'm not sure whether metoclopramide अपन लोग emetics पढ़ लिए शायद ना? Yeah, we discussed emetics and antiemetics long ago. What is metoclopramide? It'll do something, no? Both of these are dopamine antagonists. So if you give levodopa along with phenothiazine and metoclopramide, it will directly act against levodopa because they are dopamine antagonists. It will literally be like mixing water and fire. Okay, you are giving a dopamine agonist and you are giving a dopamine antagonist with it. So avoid giving phenothiazine and metoclopramide along with what you call levodopa. Now, coming to the PK of levodopa, if you choose to give levodopa directly, give it without food. Okay, presence of food delays absorption of levodopa. So just right here, presence of food delays absorption of levodopa. Give it on an empty stomach, and this will undergo first pass metabolism. So an IV dose will be much better than your oral dose if you are choosing to give levodopa. T half will be around 1 to 2 hours. It does not act very long. Coming to adverse effects of levodopa, now we've discussed the pharmacological effects itself. From there itself, you can gauge what are the adverse effects. It will obviously cause vomiting, it will cause nausea, it can cause tachycardia, arrhythmia, postural hypertension. Those are all unwanted effects. Okay, you do not want that. You only want to increase dopamine levels in your brain so that movement can become normalized. Here in Parkinson's disease, we have a problem where dopamine levels is low, because of which movement is getting affected. You only want to affect that part rather than getting any more side effects. Here the adverse effects are a result of dopamine not being selective. Because dopamine is not selective in your CNS, it is acting all around your CNS and giving a bunch of other symptoms. Sometimes you will also have psychological effects such as anxiety or psychosis, hallucination, depression. All of that can occur with increased amount of dopamine or when you give L-Dopa altogether. Now, I just told you that levodopa, if given as such, 1% of it will cross BBB and 99% of it will get metabolized in your peripheral tissues as well. There is a way through which you can decrease this amount, because now imagine you are giving 100 mg of dopamine, out of which you are only able to use 1 mg. That is a very horrible ratio. Think of it, you are giving 100 times a dose, you are giving 100% of the dose and only 1% is effective. So what you can do to decrease this 99% of wastage is inhibit both of these enzymes. If you are able to inhibit COMT and if you are able to inhibit dopamine decarboxylase, you will be able to increase this 1%. Okay, so what you can do is, along with dopamine or along with levodopa, you can give some other drugs. Something like, let's suppose I'm giving erasing this for now. Let's suppose I give something like carbidopa. Carbidopa क्या करता, it will directly inhibit this fellow. Even though it does not affect the dopamine directly, it will inhibit dopamine decarboxylase. Okay? Whenever I am giving carbidopa along with dopamine, it will inadvertently increase dopamine levels because it is decreasing the enzyme that is inhibiting dopamine, or it is decreasing the enzyme that was affecting L-dopa levels. Now, whenever I am giving levodopa, 99% of it is not being used. In that 99%, one part is because of dopamine decarboxylase. If I'm able to stop this enzyme using a drug, the drug being carbidopa, I'll be able to increase levodopa levels indirectly, right? I hope you guys are following. Okay, यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा, dopamine decarboxylase is an enzyme present in your peripheral tissue which can degenerate levodopa, because of which the amount of levodopa or the amount of dopamine that is present in your CNS will significantly decrease. What I can do to increase that amount in your CNS is that decrease its peripheral degeneration or decrease its peripheral what you call breakdown. That I can do by giving a particular drug called carbidopa. You have carbidopa, you have benserazide, both of them will do that. The advantage of giving a combination of levodopa and carbidopa is, if I give carbidopa and levodopa, the dose of levodopa can be decreased by 75%. Okay? A decrease in levodopa dose by 75% will also indicate that the adverse effect that you get from levodopa will be significantly lower. Okay? Especially the patient will not have vomiting and tachycardia, they are largely reduced. Okay? Very mild vomiting and mild tachycardia will occur, and the response that you get from levodopa will be much more quicker. Okay? The amount that can reach your CNS will be the effective amount that can reach your therapeutic dose of levodopa that can reach your CNS will be much more higher, because of which the response will also be faster. And pyridoxine will not affect your levodopa anymore. Initially, I told you there is a drug interaction if you give levodopa as such with pyridoxine, right? Especially because it will enhance peripheral decarboxylation of levodopa. If you are able to give it with dopamine decarboxylase, it does not matter even if you give it with pyridoxine, it will have no more effect on levodopa. So that is one advantage of carbidopa. Carbidopa is generally given with levodopa as a adjuvant. Even though it does not directly increase dopamine levels, it will help in increasing levodopa levels. Okay, that is the second drug. I hope you understood this. You have carbidopa as well as benserazide. Okay, both of them do the same thing. Then we have dopamine receptor agonists. So in our previous diagram, I'll just draw it again here. In the previous diagram, which I told you this way, यहाँ पर I have dopamine that is coming from here into this space and attaching to the receptor here, giving a response, right? Now let's suppose if I am able to give a drug which is similar to dopamine and it can act directly here, that will be much more easier, no? Let's suppose there is a blood vessel running here and I'm giving a dopamine agonist, okay, something that acts like dopamine. Let's suppose this fellow will act like dopamine. I'm putting it like this, okay, or I'll just put it in a different color. Second. Let's suppose this fellow acts like dopamine, okay. It is not dopamine, but this fellow will act like dopamine. These are called dopamine agonists. What they will do is they will directly enter your synapse and they will act like dopamine. Even though dopamine levels are low in a person's body, these drugs will act, they will mimic the function of dopamine and they will give the same response. Okay, let's suppose it is working on this receptor and it is affecting on this receptor. You will get the same response as dopamine, even though the normal amount of dopamine present in a person's body is low. Okay, think of it this way. Let's suppose one of your classmate is absent one day and he's sending a twin into the class for the same attendance. The teacher will not be able to tell whether it is person X or person Y because both of them are twins. You might not be able to tell, but X and Y know. यहाँ पर you are giving something of a twin. ठीक है, it is not exactly dopamine, it will act like dopamine. ठीक है, this drug will go and directly attach to this receptor and give the same response as dopamine. I hope you are following along. Specifically, the drugs that are included in dopamine agonists will be bromocriptine. You have lizuride. You have pramipexole, sorry, pramipexole, and we have apomorphine. All of these will act like dopamine and they will increase or they will basically give you threshold potentials. They will be helpful in conveying the message because even if you have low dopamine levels, these will act in place of dopamine. Okay, these are called dopamine agonists. Dopamine agonists. Okay, this is the third way. The first way was the dopamine precursor, levodopa. The second way is by adding a what do you call carbidopa to levodopa, wherein it is increasing levodopa levels indirectly. Then we have the third way where you are giving dopaminergic agonists. Okay, directly giving a substitute of dopamine, even if you are not able to generate dopamine in your body, you're giving something which will have the same effect as dopamine, which is something like bromocriptine. Then you can do another thing. Okay, I hope you are following along here. Now coming to that metabolism, I told you we have glial cells here which have both MAO enzymes, okay, MAOB especially, and it has COMT. This is responsible in breaking down dopamine levels that are present in your brain. Okay, let's suppose half of it, once it is used, gets reuptaken. Okay, it will go back into the what do you call presynaptic neuron, and half of it will go into glial cells where it is broken down into X and Y. Okay, so another thing you can do is if you are able to stop these enzymes, MAOB and COMT, if you are able to stop this enzyme, dopamine will be retained. Dopamine will not be broken down. यहाँ पर problem is the amount of dopamine is already low. Why would you want to break it down even further? So in that sense, if you are able to inhibit these enzymes, MAOB, we already went over MAO, what do you call, monoamine oxidase inhibitors in depression. Right, one type of antidepressant. In there we were mainly using MAO-A type of uh, antidepressants. Meclobemide was one antidepressant that we discussed. MAO-B antidepressants will be selagelin and rasagelin. So rasagelin selegiline. Both of them will directly inhibit this enzyme. So they will inhibit this enzyme, because of which overall dopamine level increases. See, MAOB is responsible for breaking down dopamine in your CNS. If I'm able to give rasagiline and selegiline, they will inhibit that enzyme. If you are able to inhibit MAOB, you'll be able to prolong the action of dopamine, because you'll not have degradation of what you call dopamine. Let's suppose you are giving levodopa along with rasagiline or selegiline. See, levodopa is only a substitute for dopamine. So levodopa, let's suppose you're giving drug of levodopa, and here is levodopa. It comes into your CNS, it gets converted into dopamine, and that dopamine eventually is getting broken down here. Half of it is being lost. If you're able to give rasagiline or selegiline along with this, you'll stop the breakdown of what you call dopamine through this. Meaning overall, let's suppose initially 100 molecules of dopamine were being substituted using L-Dopa, and out of which 50 were being reuptaken and 50 are going here. Okay, you are giving 100 molecules here. Let's suppose you are giving 100 molecules of levodopa here. 50, 100 are coming in, they are doing their function, and 50 are going back inside, 50 are going for degradation here, out of which 25 are dealt with MAOB and 25 are dealt with COMT. You'll be able to save this 25 if you are giving selegiline and rasagiline, right? Meaning the overall amount of dopamine that is present in your synapse will go up. Okay, you're able to save quarter amount of dopamine that you are giving. You're giving 100 and you're able to save 25 from this breakdown. Okay, I hope you're following along. Please feel free to ask doubts. Okay, this will indirectly again increase the amount of dopamine that is present in your synapse. Now, adverse effects of rasagiline and selegiline whenever you give them is it will cause nausea, especially selegiline. It will cause nausea, it can cause postural hypotension, it can cause confusion, and it can cause hallucinations. Okay, you can use this in mild cases of Parkinsonism, like the first stage, second stage. Parkinsonism will have 4 or 5 different stages. The initial stages you can use this drug. Okay, you can use it along with levodopa plus carbidopa, and you can use it with rasagiline or selegiline. Rasagiline generally is a little more potent than selegiline, even though if you're giving selegiline, if you give rasagiline, it will be slightly better because it is more potent. It is better than selegiline in a way. Okay, it may slow the course and progression of the disease by neuroprotective effect. Okay, someone have doubt? I just heard of this thing. Okay, I hope you are following along. See, this is another way wherein you are able to increase dopamine levels. Now there is another class which is COMT inhibitors, your tolcapone and entacapone. This is effective in 2 ways, because we just saw that even in your peripheral tissue you have COMT. Okay, even in peripheral tissue, if you give levodopa, it can get broken down by both dopa decarboxylase and it can be broken down into by COMT. If you are giving entacapone or tolcapone, especially tolcapone has the ability to cross BBB, and entacapone cannot do that. If you are able to give tolcapone to a patient, it will inhibit not just COMT present in your CNS, but it will also inhibit COMT that is present in your peripheral tissue. That is another way through which you can indirectly increase your dopamine levels. See, here the problem is we already have a few lesser than normal number of dopamine molecules. If you're breaking down those few molecules as well, let's suppose the amount of rice that you have in your home is 25 kgs, and that is lower than what you normally use in a month or 2 months, whatever, depending on your family size. Okay, instead of, let's suppose, because of rain or something, those rice bags are getting destroyed, or they're becoming useless basically. If you are able to bring them back inside your home, you'll be sheltering them from rain, right? The same thing we are trying to do here. We already have less amount of rice. Here we have less amount of dopamine. Why would you want to break it down? Here we are stopping the breakdown of that dopamine by either stopping MAOB inhibitors, by giving MAOB inhibitors, by stopping MAO enzyme, or by giving COMT inhibitors. Okay, catechol O methyl transferase inhibitors. So those will include your tolcapone and entacapone. They are called catechol O methyl transferase. That is the name of COMT. Okay, COMT inhibitors बोलते हैं लोगों को. Okay, but tolcapone and entacapone are catechol O methyl transferase inhibitors. All right. Now coming to adverse effects that you get from tolcapone and see, most of these drugs will have adverse effect associated with increase in dopamine. Whenever you have increase in dopamine, similar side effects will be there. That is why you will get nausea, orthostatic hypotension, confusion, and hallucinations with tolcapone and entacapone. Tolcapone specially is hepatotoxic. It can lead to hepatotoxicity. Please be careful whenever you are giving tolcapone. Make sure that the patient does not have an underlying vertical hepatic disease, or even if you are giving tolcapone, make sure that you perform a liver function test every now and then, just to make sure that their liver is working properly. Okay, so that is tolcapone and entacapone. These are all the ways through which you can increase dopamine directly or indirectly. Directly is only two ways actually. You can give levodopa, or you can give dopamine agonists, bromocriptine, lisuride, and all. The other two ways through which you can increase dopamine is by either inhibiting COMT peripherally and centrally, or by inhibiting MAOB by giving rasagiline and saligerin, and for CMT you are giving tolcapone and entacapone. These are ways of influencing dopamine levels. We'll go over the ways to influence cholinergic levels in the next class. They are basically anticholinergics. We've already gone through